everyone, welcome back to the Earthdawn Survival Guide, a podcast for all disciplines, paths, players, and game masters, and enthusiasts like Josh and myself. I am Dan.
I am Josh.
And on tonight's podcast, we will be discussing all things quizzical and thaumaturgical.
Figmentical.
Figmentical. I love that one. Josh gets to make up a word
thaumaturgical all the time. You use thaumaturgical all the time when we're going to be talking about spells, and we're talking about illusion spells. So let's just make up a word.
Mm-hmm. Go for it. Please, take it.
Figmentical.
I love it. We're 72?
72. This is
72 episodes in, and Josh gets to make up a word finally. So I dig all of it. If you have a question for us, because we're going to read some emails here quick first, but if you have a question for us, please feel free to email us at edsgpodcast@gmail.com. We loved all the emails we got. In fact, we got some personalized artwork for Josh and myself, and we got one not to read on the air. So out of the 4 we got, we're going to read like 2. So sorry about that. But somebody did bring up a good comment, which was, hey, reviews, because Josh asked people to review the podcast. If you like us, hate us, whatever the case may be. Some people are having trouble in doing so. So wherever you can.
Yes. Some podcatcher clients and services do not actually allow users to rate or review the podcast that they subscribe or follow through that. And if that's the case and you can't do that, that's fine. That's completely understandable.
Do what you can.
If you do use one, like I think it was, what was it? Google? I don't have the email in front of me. Was it Google Podcast
and or Spotify?
Yeah, Google Podcast does not do rating. Spotify doesn't, which is understandable because, you know, like you can favorite it. And I think or if you follow it, that might drive something in their recommendation algorithm, but they don't do reviews and stuff the way that, say, iTunes does. Apple Music, whatever they're calling it now, does.
Yeah.
So if you can, please do so. If you can't, because of the way you listen to the show, that's perfectly all right.
Fine.
We appreciate your listenership anyway.
Yes.
Before we get to the other emails, one other thing. In the previous episode in 71, where we talked about orcs, or we talked about Carafad.
Oh, absolutely.
I went on to a little bit of a sidebar where I was talking about Landis.
Yeah.
And the development or lack thereof in first edition and so on and so forth. Actually got a comment on the Facebook post about it from Lou, where he did not specifically remember saying that Landis was not developed because it was intended to be an area for GMs to develop on their own.
Yeah.
And I suspect I may have been conflating some stuff he had talked about with leaving open spaces on the map in general for GMs to develop on their own, and the lack of development in Landis, and thinking that they were sort of the same thing. They weren't necessarily. He did also mention that most of what I was talking about with regards to the phases of development and why certain areas were developed when they were and so forth was pretty well accurate in terms of that. So thank you for the clarification, Lou. 1
point for Josh. Thank you, Lou. Love hearing it, and I love the fact that Lou is listening. So thank you again, sir. You laid the groundwork. We stand on your shoulders. Josh and his team stand on your shoulders. I'm just an onlooker. So we have a couple of long emails, and if I sound hoarse through this, I am like 2 weeks after my second Pfizer shot, so I have a lingering cough that is the only after effect I have after this. So I'm working on it. I'll try and get all these stuff out. So, hi. First up, thanks. I am enjoying catching up on your podcast, as I only discovered it having come back to GMing Earthdawn this year. I have a question about the physiology of Tiskrang. As we have a female in the group, I was, and unable to find a description of female Tiskrang being egg layers, and unsure if they suckle young. I am curious about the difference in appearance between female and male Tiskrang, and I was wondering how easy they are to discern. Josh, take it away. We're going to segment this email out.
Yes. Okay, first off, welcome back. Always great to see people returning to Earthdawn after a time away, however long that might have been.
Yes, thank you, Edward.
The information that he is looking for can actually be found in Denizens of Earthdawn Volume 1, which has the Tiskrang in it. It is also found in the classic / 3rd edition book Name Givers of Barsave, which reprints a lot of that same information. As egg layers, Tiskrang do not have mammalian physiology. which basically put simply means that female Tiskrang don't have boobs. In fact, it is revealed in the information about Tiskrang from the Denizens books that it is actually the males who, for a short period of time after the young are hatched, provide nursing sort of in that regard. And the bond between a child and what's called their Chida is the strongest bond that they have, because Tiskrang are communal families for the most part. And all of the eggs, barring some exceptions with House Sirtis, but the eggs are all like in a shared hatchery together, and nobody actually knows necessarily which female laid the particular egg. And so it's all a big community thing. But that bond between the young Tiskrang and the Chida is generally the strongest sort of emotional family bond that they have.
Yeah.
But there's also not really any discussion of what that nursing does to the male physiology. I've generally always considered it that Tiskrang can tell the difference between males and females.
Yeah.
But also remember that, I think this is mentioned in the 4th edition player's guide, but it's also mentioned in other places, that young Tiskrang do not, their gender
is indeterminate
when they're first born. And it's not until they go through Kaisa, through puberty, that their determination of male or female comes about. And so that, coupled with the various other things, I've always considered that it can be kind of hard for other name givers to tell the difference between male and female Tiskrang, unless the Tiskrang in question is obviously presenting in a certain way.
Yeah.
But no, basically the short answer is no, Tiskrang don't have boobs. These sort of obviously female lizard people that you often see in fantasy art, like the Dragonborn from D&D, I think is probably the most obvious example that people will think of. Generally do not, that physiological difference is not something that exists.
Yeah, fair enough. I only ever went by like maybe pitch of shift in voice, maybe is a giveaway for other name givers, but that's not always a good tell either. Not always. Helpful. So back to Edward's email. Having played this game since 1st edition and a long history previous to that, I have a lot of early edition adventure modules from another game system. I have converted a couple of 1st edition modules of the other system to Earthdawn, starting with an adventure involving a town of Orlane, now on the north shore of the Eris Sea, and a horror-touched Naga. I have also started converting iconic locations from a long series of 1st edition adventures involving dragon men. I have replaced the dragon men in the series with Inve at strength ratings of 2, 4, and 7. I look forward to running a long campaign thread involving Inve from beyond the Eris Sea, infiltrating Urupa. I have been shotgunning your episodes, one's more relevant to the game I am running, but I just listened to the Spirits and Summoning episode and enjoy the information about Inve, so I will resist asking for an in-depth drill down into these spirits. Dan, thank you very much for your work on Legends. It has brought a new element to my game starts. The players hear Legends and learn more about the game world as I get them into the spirit of the game as a beginning. I tie it into the Earthdawn soundtrack by Jan Hawk and Konstantin Kazantsis, which I use extensively for mood during the game. Josh, I appreciate your ruminations and thoughts and backgrounds on the goals you have for taking Earthdawn forward. Looking forward to the next Earthdawn Kickstart, hoping to see a Urupa book sometime soon. Thank you, Edward.
Yes, there is a Urupa book in development. I've got some cool ideas for it. That is all I can say about it at the moment.
It's in the gestational.
Are funny things, because many times when I think it's like, okay, I am ready to like really knuckle down and start doing some really serious production work on this, something else comes up that ends up drawing my attention. Yeah. Like, oh, we need you to go through old books and find art to put into the next Legends of Barsave. Oh, we need you to do another cover collage for a Legends of Barsave adventure. Oh, we want you to do this thing related to this other project that we can't talk about yet, although if you've been following our social media, you've started to get hints. That kind of thing. So, Urupa book, will eventually be out, but I don't know that we're actually going to see it this calendar year, to be completely honest.
Fair. And there's that whole, work and family thing.
Yeah, and then there's...
takes up a little bit of time.
Day job and single fatherhood and all of that stuff. So.
All of that stuff. And just in case anybody is actually curious, I do know that the Earthdawn soundtrack by X-Score is available on Amazon at this moment. So I have that. It's great.
Yeah, I've listened to it a couple of times.
Yeah, I have it on CD because I'm old-fashioned that way. One of those things. Anyway, our other email is from Nils, and he is from Berlin, Germany. I will not bother with trying to do a German accent because I will butcher it horribly. So I will spare all of you. Because it's been a while since I did, an orc. Anyway, hi, Dan and Josh. I found out about the 4th edition of Earthdawn about 3 months ago, and as the pandemic is still affecting life here in Germany quite heavily, I thought it would be great to find some people and start a new game online. I ended up as the GM and tried to find help on how to run an interesting campaign, letting my players experience how cool and awesome the setting is. Enter EDSG Podcast. My commute to and from work takes a combined 3 hours per day, so your podcast is the perfect way to kill that time and also prepare for my game. I wanted to thank you for that. Now I'm 62 episodes in, and I'm afraid I will catch up to the newest episodes very soon. What to do when there is only one new episode per week? Sad face.
Listen to the Legends of Earthdawn actual play podcast.
Absolutely. Because then you'll get to hear Josh more and me less. I also have one quick question. As the characters will have the opportunity to get to a second circle soon, and we have an illusionist and another mancer in the group, I wanted to know whether they can take another standard matrix if they already have taken one for their first level talent option. I found nothing in the rules against it.
No, they cannot. It is only listed once in the option list because it can only be taken once.
Gotcha.
As I think has been mentioned in the episodes where we were talking about the various magicians when we were going through the discipline, the talent selections at novice and journeyman circles for them.
Yes.
In 3rd edition, when they had the first introduced the talent option thing, they would have standard matrix or enhanced matrix or whatever available at that tier listed a number of times equal to the maximum number of them that you could take.
Mm-hmm.
That was mildly confusing because it was the only time when something would be listed multiple times as an option.
Yeah.
And with the understanding that we came to with 4th edition that spell matrix items were a thing and not necessarily very hard to have made or to obtain in some way.
Yeah.
The need for magicians to have a lot of spell matrix talents was lesser, but also because the more spell matrix talents that they have, the less likely it is, the fewer options there are for them to use or to take other talents to flesh out their style. And we kind of wanted to give magicians a few more talent toys to play with, as opposed to just have everything being based on spells. And I say this as someone who is an absolute give me all of the matrices and all of the spells kind of spellcaster player.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, if at first circle your magician took spell matrix as their option, then that's it for that tier.
Mm-hmm.
At 2nd, 3rd, and 4th circle, they'll have to take other options.
Yeah. Sorry, that's kind of the way it goes. But your free talents, and then you get that as the option. So you can start off with what, 3 as your best?
Yep, you get your 2 for free, and then you can take 1 as an option. And that gives you 3, which at first circle is actually more than has been available
ever
at any previous edition. I think in 3rd edition, you could get 2 because you got 1 as a discipline talent and you could take another as an option.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a 3rd that you could take as an additional option at a later circle, giving you a total of 3.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I don't have the book right in front of me to double check. Anyway.
Maximum you can start off with is 3 until you get to journeyman.
Until you get to 5th circle when you upgrade one of the free ones to enhanced. And you can take an option as an enhanced matrix to give you a total of 4, 2 standard, 2 enhanced.
Yeah. So
assuming
that's
you
the best
don't
you can
have
do.
any items and whatnot.
Them's the rules. So thank you, Nils. Keep writing in, both you and Edward. And quick little shout out to Lemon Crafton Jr. Thank you for the personalized art for Josh's character and my character. We'll get you some details later on. Appreciate it greatly. Love it. Love the fact that you spent some extra time on that one. So now we are off to discuss the fun part of the episode. Not that wasn't fun, but the more fun part, which is illusionism spells.
Yes, we have covered
Wizard.
We've covered Wizard, we've covered Elementalist, we've covered Nethermancer.
Yeah.
Now we're doing the fourth of the magician disciplines that is in the player's guide.
Yes.
The Illusionist.
Yes, and fear not, shamanism is on the way.
Oh yeah, we'll cover that eventually.
We'll get there.
If
Pretty
you
soon.
have not listened to our Illusionist Discipline
Podcast.
breakdown,
Yeah.
that episode, whichever number it was, however many months ago it was for us. Or if you want to refresh yourself, go back and listen to that, because there's a lot of theory and discussion about illusion that we may get into here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, illusionists are great.
I was waiting for the standard line, but that's okay. I like it.
Gotta have a
not the
catchphrase.
It's just not the same if Josh doesn't say it's great. So anyway, as you're finishing building your character, your illusionist, dwarf, Tiskrang, troll, whatever, you get your spell selection. Be it 7, 8, or 9, if you're lucky, 10. Very fortunate. Spells. You get mostly first circle spells. You do get the option of picking a second circle spell, so we'll cover both first and second circle for that. So let's walk our way through this now. First circle, and these are just alphabetical because that's how they're laid out in the book. Assuring Touch, 0-thread spell.
Yes. This is a potent anti-fear defense. One of the better ones. In fact, maybe one of the only ones that's available this early in the game. There are other fear defense abilities. Lionheart is a very common talent that a lot of people get, but it usually doesn't show up for most folks until they get into journeyman circles.
Mm-hmm.
Heartening Laugh is a talent that troubadours, I think, get in the novice tier. I think swordmasters get access to it as well. So there are a couple of things that do that. But this spell, 0 threads, touch range, provides bonuses to mystic and social defense, and willpower test bonus to any tests that are made to resist or throw off fear.
Yeah, this is pretty potent for 0-thread spell.
Yeah. And it's not an actual illusion. It is a very nice fear-resistant social kind of Buffy type spell that I don't think gets the respect that I think it deserves. I mean, you look at those bonuses available for a spell, especially when you look at what else is potentially available that can do a similar effect.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much that's available this early.
No, and like I said, it's a 0-thread first circle spell to help your party resist fear, and that's just worth it right there. So,
and extra successes on the casting extend the duration, so it makes it last longer.
Mm-hmm.
An extra thread allows you to add up to your spellcasting rank in additional targets, so you can, with a single casting, potentially affect your entire adventuring group, which is nothing to sneeze at.
No, not at all. So on to Best Face. This one is an illusion.
This is an illusion. It disguises the target's identity. It can be cast either on the illusionists themselves or on a target.
Yeah, range of touch.
Yeah, with range of touch. It provides a bonus to disguise self, the talent, which does a very similar thing, but it provides a bonus to disguise self or to any charisma-based tests made when trying to convince someone of the false identity. So it kind of plays a little bit with the talents that an illusionist has. It allows people who might not have access to that magical talent be able to use it effectively because they get the spell to do it. And it can enhance and make those deceptions more effective in the vein of other spells that we've talked about that play into the themes of the discipline and provide bonuses to stuff that they would be inclined to do anyway.
Yeah. Great way to pick up people in bars.
It does have some limitations as a first circle spell. It only affects the target's head and neck. It doesn't change
The rest of you?
the rest of the body at all. So it is perhaps a little bit limited in terms of your ability to mimic other name-giver races with it.
Yeah.
Like a dwarf is not going to appear to be anything but a dwarf with this spell. You know,
But
you're
just a
not going to
different
have a
looking
windling that's disguised as a troll, but it's the same kind of limitations that are available, you know, that are part of the disguise self talent.
Yeah, it's a first circle.
So you just learn to work with them.
Yeah, but it's based on disguise self. So the disguise self could take care of the rest of that for the right recipient of the spell. On to Cloak. Not Cloak and Dagger, just Cloak.
Yeah, this is another stealth enhancing spell. The Nethermancer gets one in first circle with Shadow Meld that provides bonus to stealthy stride tests. Cloak does something similar. Yeah. It makes the target less noticeable, gets bonuses to any action tests that are aimed at concealment or stealth.
Yeah. Now, it says Figment, not Illusion. Maybe you want to make the distinction here and now.
Yeah. Generally speaking, spells that do other things, like this is a Figment rather than an illusion because all it does is provide a bonus, makes it a little bit easier for somebody to sneak around while under the effect of the spell. If because of a high perception roll or something like that, the person under the effect of Cloak gets noticed, then it's going to go away. It's not invisibility. It just makes the stealthy situation a little bit more likely to succeed.
Gotcha. Okay. So on to Disaster.
Disaster is a spell
creating a distraction.
Yeah, it basically is intended to create a distraction. Oh my, what on earth could that be? Thinking of the scene from Princess Bride where they're doing the challenge of wits over the iocane powder.
Yes.
And Vicini goes, what on earth can that be? And Wesley
Yes.
turns around and
He
switches them around. It's to do that kind of situation.
But this is like maybe a roof collapsing or a tent imploding or something like that.
It does open up the opportunity for somebody to make a blindside attack against the distracted individual.
There you go.
It is tougher to do in combat. It does require an additional success because people in combat are already kind of aware of danger and a little bit less likely to be distracted in such a way. But opening up a situation or creating a distraction long enough for somebody to sneak past or do something else, it has potentially quite a number of uses for the creative player, which is one of the things we'll find, I think, about the illusionist spells, is that a lot of them tend to require a little bit more creativity. They're a little bit less direct in terms of what they can be used for, and so might seem weaker than they otherwise would be.
Yeah, because we're 4 spells in, and 2 of them have 2 paragraphs each. So the illusionism spells tend to be a little bit longer because they're somewhat nebulous. They have to be shoehorned in a little bit and corralled as far as this is the limit of the spell. Just occasionally. So on to the other 0-thread spell, Encrypt. I believe this one's new for 4th edition.
It might have been brought in from Arcane Mysteries. I don't remember now, right off the top of my head.
Yeah, been a while since I've looked at illusionism spells.
It allows the illusionist to make a message unreadable. Cast it on a letter, on a piece of text, on a message that's being delivered, and anybody that tries to read it needs to overcome the sensing difficulty of the illusion in order to be able to read what it says.
So how helpful would this be? I mean, depending upon the campaign you're in, passing messages back and forth in study hall, essentially. Essential to get it first circle, or wait a little bit longer?
It is situational. I think it's a spell that is really good to have as something that exists within the setting. Makes a lot of sense that there would be magic that would have been developed to do counterintelligence type activities to mask information. But its utility in terms of a game is somewhat limited potentially.
Just like I said, for more of the creative player / creative game master to use. And then I have always loved this one. It is fantastic. The classic illusionism spell, Ephemeral Bolt.
One of the bread and butter damaging spells for illusionists. There are two of them.
Yes. We'll get to the other one.
This is, in terms of like direct damage, blasty spells. The other one we'll get to in a moment. But this is an illusion. The illusionist casts a glowing bit of energy towards the target. The default is a sort of wriggling, glowing green bolt.
Yeah.
Wiggles through the air and hits the target. Mm-hmm. It does illusion damage, so it does a little bit more damage than other spells of equivalent circle do, in part because of the possibility that it might not end up doing any damage whatsoever.
Yeah.
As a damaging spell, we've talked about, go back to the illusion episode talking about disbelief and sensing and stuff like that. The one potential drawback of this spell is that as it gets more powerful and it deals more damage, it is potentially more likely that the target might, as a result of that, sense that it is not a real effect.
Yeah.
Because its disbelief difficulty is low, or its sensing difficulty is low. So that is something to keep in mind. And it's at that point that you start enhancing its casting with false sight and things like that increase the difficulty of seeing through the illusion.
Yeah. On to Fun with Doors. And this is a holdover from first edition that is just so much fun to use.
I will be honest, this is a frustrating spell. Well, I don't mean that in... This is a frustrating spell because the image that comes to mind with this spell is the classic Scooby-Doo hallway chase scene.
Gotcha.
Where you've got the people going back and forth between the doors and it doesn't make any sense how they're going and wacky hijinks ensue. And so this is a spell that people who are inclined to play illusionists want to have in their repertoire because it's got a cool concept.
And tricky.
I've never really seen a situation where it has been used particularly effectively. I've seen a lot of attempts for it to be used, but it's a spell that I really wish worked better than it seems to from my experience.
Fair. I've only seen it done twice, and both of those times are either in a tavern or in the hallway leading to somebody's room at the tavern, where they were able to just make the door appear 3 feet different. And the character they were picking on was hammered, drunk, intoxicated, and therefore made it more fun. However,
it's useful for a little bit of a distraction, for causing a little bit of a delay.
Yeah.
Basically, you can make illusions related to the door, but it's a figment, so any interaction with the illusion makes it go away. There's a bunch of stuff that you want to be able to do with the spell, but you can't.
Yeah.
And that I find a little bit frustrating. I think for anything more elaborate, though, it would have to be a higher circle. And again, I think in the right circumstances with a sufficiently creative player, it can probably work just fine. It doesn't work the way most people want it to work. And so therefore it is frustrating as a result.
I agree. I think if we give the caveat, it's more of a playful spell.
Yeah.
Go with that. Just leave it as a playful spell and not anything other than just, that's the nature of the illusion is, I'm here to have a little bit of fun. Fun with doors. That's why it's called Fun with Doors. Fun. Onto Monstrous Mantle, which is, again, a bread and butter spell.
Yeah, this is a spell that I think all illusionists would be well served to take as part of their starting allotment. This is a spell that has existed since first edition. It is an illusion that enhances the combat capability, the close combat capability of the person upon whom it is cast. It increases their physical defense as well as their close combat attack and damage spells. So it makes them hit a little bit harder, makes them a little bit harder to hit. So it has both defensive and offensive capabilities. But like all illusions, does have the potential downside that somebody who gets a really solid attack in on the target of the spell is going to disrupt the illusion.
Yeah. So what was changed from previous editions to fourth? Can you go into that detail?
Nothing really.
Okay.
The only things that have changed is the nature of interacting with and discovering that it's an illusion.
Gotcha.
I think the bonuses, obviously, like the minor changes, I don't remember whether previous edition offhand had a thread or not.
Yeah, fair.
But the basic, like, I think the some of the number values might have been tweaked slightly in a couple of places, but the basic spell premise is the same as it has always been.
That works. And I do love the fact that Monster's Mantle is 0 threads, but range of touch. So you have to be able to touch the person to give them the Monster's Mantle so they can go fight stuff. Send Message, which kind of goes along with the Encrypt spell, both 0 threads.
This allows the illusionist to physically send a message on a piece of paper from themselves to somebody else that is within line of sight. This is the first appearance of an illusionist effect that shows up quite a bit, which is the closest thing to teleportation that kind of exists within the game.
I was going to mention that.
There's I think it's in Second Circle, another spell that does, no, it's not in Second Circle. Basically allows the illusionist to connect to spaces, have a quote-unquote illusion of warping space shortcuts with space that people don't really understand exactly how it works, but it does. And this is the sort of thing, an effect that perhaps an upgraded Fun with Doors could take advantage of.
Yeah.
But it basically allows the illusionist to pass a note to a target that they can see.
Yeah. Oh, very useful. I can imagine the creative player having a very fun time with this a lot. And this is where you get your spy vibe in a little bit. So, and then of course the holdover, the 1-2 punch, if you do it just right and cast them exactly right, you have Ephemeral Bolt, 0 thread. You should follow that up with True Ephemeral Bolt. This also 0 thread spell.
This is the other direct damage spell that illusionists get. It is real as opposed to an illusion, so it does not do as much damage.
Mm-hmm.
It does provide a penalty to the next sensing test, and I realize depending on exactly what's going on, I think we've had emails about this in the past.
Mm-hmm.
The interaction with, does it penalize the actual test that they're making, or does it increase the difficulty, or whatever.
What have you. Yeah.
I think, generally speaking, if you just bump the difficulty up by 2 rather than penalizing the test, it makes things a little bit easier in that regard. But mathematically, it's not a huge difference either way.
No.
But unlike previous editions, we introduced in 4th edition the concept of some spells being able to be placed in the same matrix.
Yes.
With the small number of matrices that have always been available, it's generally not particularly common, at least from my experience, for illusionists to have both the real and fake versions of spells in separate matrices.
Yeah.
And that defangs part of the whole fun, to a certain extent, of playing with illusions and illusion spells. The idea of, you never know whether they're going to cast the real one or the fake one. Logistically, in previous editions, they either would have the real one or they would have the fake one. They generally would not have both.
Yeah.
Now that they can be placed in the same matrix, the illusionist can decide at the time that they cast the spell whether it's the real one or whether it's the fake one, and thereby keep their opponents guessing when it comes to whether they should take that risk of disbelieving and opening themselves up to the full hit from a real spell or what.
Yeah.
So that is something to keep in mind.
I was playing and I had a player who we had a 1-2. We had a combination between the two of us. I was playing a certain character. He was playing a windling illusionist, and literally had both matrices for Ephemeral Bolt and True Ephemeral Bolt when it came to combat. That was a nice 1-2 punch from that character. It was fantastic. So they were the exception to the rule, I believe, for your example. On to the 1-thread spell, Trust.
This is a short-term, rapid, make somebody your friend ability.
Oh, there you go.
Doesn't really work particularly well in combat, because at that point you're already in a sort of hostile situation. Is not great for actually building a long-term relationship with someone, because the side effect of the spell is that when it ends, the target actually is aware that they've been magically manipulated and so does not feel as well disposed towards the illusionist.
Gotcha.
But generally speaking, this is a good way for an illusionist to schmooze their way past a guard or any other kind of situation where they don't want to go through the whole difficulty
rigmarole
of the first impression and building a rapport and increasing the relationship level with the NPC. If it's somebody that they're just trying to get past, this is a way to sort of shortcut around that mechanic for a limited period of time.
So this is the quick and easy, down and dirty version of quick interaction. You're my friend. Let's go.
Yeah, and it comes along with the side effect that you can't really be hostile or whatever towards the target of the spell while it's in effect. Otherwise, it immediately ends.
Yeah.
But this is a nice little kind of playing into the illusionist's social sphere of operation. This is a spell that can come in very handy for that aspect of things. And playing into the spy theme, that's kind of cropped up in a couple of places. Spies having the ability to get somebody to trust them, at least for a short period of time while they're perhaps doing something nefarious, can be useful.
Absolutely. On the 12th of the 12 first circle spells, another 0 thread, Unseen Voices.
Pretty straightforward. This is a Figment, so it's an obvious illusion that creates voices within range. There has been discussion that's come up about this in the past, which is, well, if it's a Figment, it's obvious that it's an illusion, so how is the spell going to be able to do anything? The purpose of this is to act as a distraction or perhaps to draw somebody away from a location to another, because if you hear sounds that you didn't expect to be hearing or whatever around a corner in a closet, whatever, you are going to be inclined to go and check that out. You may very quickly find out that they are illusory, that they are not real. If you go to the place where the sound is supposedly coming from, you're not going to find a person there. Yeah. But it's still going to potentially have an effect in much the same way that the stealth spell Cloak was a Figment earlier. The illusion is not the primary mechanism of things there. It's merely the way that the effect is delivered.
So I think Unseen Voices is the classic example I can think of. This is in the original Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi dismantling the tractor beam, and he points down the hallway, and the stormtrooper's like, "What was that?" See, that's exactly what this is for. Distract him.
Yeah, that kind of situation. Go. The classic ventriloquist throwing your voice effect, can be done with this. With a creative player in the right circumstances and a game master who's not being super ornery about letting their illusionist play with fun effects, can probably use this to some effectiveness in the course of their career.
Wonderful storytelling ideas and options for this one. So of the 12 spells in first circle, only 4 of them require threads, and Fun with Doors requires 2 threads. Everything else is a 0-thread spell. So what would you recommend waiting on until later on? I think we said Encrypt maybe can wait, depending upon the campaign that you're in. Send Message is fun. So Ephemeral Bolt and True Ephemeral Bolt are probably high priority. Monstrous Mantle I would put a pretty high priority on. Oh, yeah. Trust is very good.
Trust, maybe. Unseen Voices, maybe. Assuring Touch, you probably want to put a higher priority than you would otherwise think.
Yep.
Because the anti-fear effects, at first circle, or, early on, Nethermancers get frightened. You throw that on somebody that would be a potential target for a frightened spell or frightened talent. Yeah. So that's worthwhile.
I think Cloak is also underrated.
Can be useful. It depends on what else you've got in the group. Boost the already useful stealth abilities of a scout or thief, or allow somebody who normally isn't stealthy to perhaps, like if you really need to sneak past a place, you spend a couple of rounds putting that on people. And if anybody listened to the Legends podcast, Virag used the Shadow Meld to great effect to stealth around dangers that we really didn't want to deal with.
Yeah. And
Disaster can be useful. I would say generally Fun with Doors, you're probably not going to have as much fun with as you expect you will. We talked about the frustrations with that.
Yeah.
Send message and encrypt are probably a lower priority, especially if you're not going to be doing as much of a urban city-based social game.
Yeah.
But they can still potentially be useful.
Yeah. And 5 of the 12 spells are all touch range. So your illusionist has to, if you're going to have those as a higher priority, stay close to the people you're going to cast those spells on. So, as we have done with all the other magician disciplines, and we'll get to the shaman eventually, is since you can possibly pick up a second circle spell upon your character creation and have that at the ready, let's go through second circle spells as well, just because if you want to have one in your back pocket or this ace up your sleeve, let's get into those. Blindness begins second circle. It's a 1-thread spell.
We talked about with the Nethermancer how useful ephemeral darkness can potentially be.
Oh, ethereal darkness?
Ethereal darkness. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, fair.
We're talking about illusionist, so ephemeral was on my brain.
Absolutely.
Ethereal darkness for the Nethermancer. The darkness penalties are really useful if you can, even if it's illusory blindness, if you can make somebody unable to see for a limited period of time and strike them with darkness penalties. The full darkness penalty is a -4. For a second circle spell, that's pretty impressive.
To sneeze at. Yeah.
And it's certainly going to help defang any kind of physical threat that you might be facing in a combat situation. So it's definitely one worth looking into.
Well, and the success levels and the extra threads, no matter what, just increase the duration that it lasts by minutes. So that person's going to be temporarily blinded for a long time.
It does have the drawback of not being any good against things that don't actually need to see, because it does specifically target vision. It doesn't affect any other senses. It also is an illusion, and so it's possible, depending on the tests that the target is making, could act as sensing tests to potentially realize that they are not actually blind.
Yeah.
But even for a couple of rounds, those penalties are nothing to turn your back on.
Exactly. On to Displace Image, a 1-thread spell.
A solid defensive spell. It's kind of like the classic mirror image type spell, although there's a more exact duplicate of that at a higher circle for illusionists. But this basically makes the target to appear not where they are, which means that attacks made against the target, at least the initial attack made against the target, is going to fail. If the target does not react appropriately based on what happened, sort of where they appear to be, it does provide bonuses to notice that it's an illusion. But even as an illusion, if it gets sensed because somebody rolls really well on their attack test to try and attack the target, they're still not swinging where the target is, and so we'll miss them. So it is decent for even a limited type of defensive ability there.
This reminds me of Thor trying to tackle Loki and goes through the image and Loki's like, are you ever not going to fall for that? So that one. I'm throwing out as many pop culture references as I possibly can. Innocent Activity.
It's another sort of stealthy type spell. It allows the illusionist or anyone sort of within the area to look like they're doing something mundane and simple, but perhaps not be doing something mundane or simple. It is a fairly effective illusion in terms of masking what's actually going on. And so if you're setting an ambush or doing some other kind of task where you maybe don't want to be interrupted, but don't want it to be noticed that you're doing something that you're not supposed to, it can be a useful situation.
Yeah, nothing to see here. Move along. And then one of my absolute favorites, Mind Fog.
Mind Fog is useful. This temporarily makes a target forget what they were trying to do.
I guess this...
If it's successful, they can only react to things that are done against them. And so it is a kind of remove a target from combat kind of situation by making them confused about what was going on and what they were trying to do. But it's useful outside of combat as well. Anytime you're in a situation where you want somebody to not remember what they were doing or what's going on, this is a nice little effect that you can put on.
I cast this on myself every time I walk into a room and go, why did I come in here? See? That works. Phantom Flame.
This is another damage spell.
Yay.
It is an illusion. It is one of a couple of spells that illusionists get that is an illusionary version of another discipline's spell. This is the illusionist version of the wizard spell Flame Flash, except that it's not real fire.
Yeah.
It does damage. It does physical damage the way that fire would, but it's illusory. And so it is possible that the target could notice that it's not real. But this, along with a couple of other spells, there are illusionists. If you are in a situation where you are perhaps pretending to be another discipline, having spells that look like the spells that another discipline might cast could come in handy.
Yeah, because they don't know exactly who you are. They think you're going to do something else, and then they won't. This is also good for the Foley artist who really likes to do flame noises with their mouth. I have a friend who does that a lot, so it's okay. And I think the last one, See the Unseen.
Yes. This is a spell that enhances the target's ability to notice hidden or secreted objects or characters. So secret doors, detecting illusions, I would allow it to provide if they were kind of examining it visually.
Yeah.
It does not allow the target to see things that they normally would not given the circumstances. Like if they can't see into astral space, then they wouldn't be able to see into astral space with the use of the spell.
Well, yeah,
the bonus doesn't, provide you with abilities that you don't already have, but it does provide a nice bonus to investigative or similar types of tests that you might be making. Searching a room, you're trying to find a trapdoor, a hidden compartment, anything like
secret
that.
Object. Yeah, something like that. So there are only 6 spells in second circle for the illusionist to use. So a total of 18 spells. Again, nothing to sneeze at. And if you're fortunate enough to get 7, to have the right legend points to do it, that's pretty easy to buy all 18 rather quickly.
Eventually.
For your beginning character, yeah. So not too horrible a little kit there for the illusionist. Any experiences otherwise with illusionists in your past?
Well, we've got
real quick.
Needles.
Oh, right.
Who's the windling illusionist who regularly throws Monstrous Mantle on our frontline characters when a combat starts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's common. I don't know whether it was Mind Fog or the upgraded version of that. There's a there's a higher circle version of that. No, it was Clarion Call. It wasn't Mind Fog. It was Clarion Call that he used, which is a 4th circle spell that goes above and beyond, they forget what they were doing. It actually persuades them to do something in particular. Use that
like
on
or something like that.
The Denerastus guy in Parlength that was looking to take all our stuff.
I remember that was like the ace up the sleeve card of, I just changed the entire adventure.
Yeah.
Result is now going this way. So
basically was successful long enough for us to get past things and then just leg it for Haven.
Yes.
I know that Needles has tried using Fun with Doors several times and never actually been able to use it the way that I think he wants.
Fair.
Which is part of why I'm maybe a little bit frustrated or not as happy with that spell as I think I could. And I seem to recall that being an issue with earlier editions as well.
Fair.
It seems like an effect that would be much better and useful if it were a higher circle spell. Like you would be able to do more with it at a higher circle.
Gotcha. So, any ideas if Morgan's going to tweak that or make a different version in the new magic book? Fair enough. Morgan's going to surprise us all. And we're going to appreciate every bit of that. So that is our presentation of the illusionism spells you can possibly get upon your character creation. If you have any questions for us or any other suggestions about maybe how to use some of those spells, we'd like to hear, or stories you've had that actually, if you were able to use Fun with Doors effectively. How's that? That's a challenge for any listener out there. If you've used Fun with Doors effectively, please write in and tell us how that happened and exactly what the circumstances were. Josh will appreciate it. I will appreciate it. I think it's a spell that needs something, but that's just me. So, until next time, folks, it is time for you to go cast an illusion of your own legend and get people to believe it.
Good night, everybody.